Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. Or, I don't know, whatever your time zone dictates that the hello is for wherever the hell you are. Welcome to the Tech Off Topic podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mike Elsmore. I'm developer advocate at Logs.io, and this is...
James Seconde. Hello, I'm a developer advocate at Laravel partnered Jump24.
Also, one of the co-hosts of this shambles of a podcast.
Is that the new tagline? This shambles of a podcast.
Well, previously it's been a pipeline to doom. This is a shambles of a podcast. Next week it may be happy hell on earth. I'm not sure yet.
Bromtech tinnitus.
Oh,
I preferred that.
No, let's not mention those people. Expletive. Right, okay. Now, for the first time, we are going to be hosting a guest, and time to drag his sorry backside into this. Hello, John.
Hello. How's everybody?
I've just noticed your stream background is very Harris Heller.
Just a little bit. I can flip the colours around if you want. It's all relative.
If you flip the colours around, it's just going to look like Sam instead.
That's true. Gradients, I think, are the solution to this problem, but not the ones you think. LCTstore.com. Sorry, it's like a physical reflex. That like. It's like
water bottle make response.
It's like Pavlov's dogs.
We have a cat on stream as well.
Yes.
Honestly, he saved it a long time last time, and now he's like, sorry to explain for anyone listening on Spotify or whatever, but my cat has once again decided, as going live, that this is the best time to come and get fussums.
It's quite impressive timing, to be fair.
He loves it. He's going to start. Come on, off you go, cat. Come on.
Just can't get the staff.
I am his staff.
Are we talking about me or the cat?
But, it's all relative.
Okay, so hi, John. It's been a while since I've actually seen your lovely face in a real-time perspective.
I'm trying to figure out just how much of that sentence was sarcasm. But yes, no, it has been a while.
It's been 2 years.
Yes, it has.
Because it was the last Hackference.
No, it was the Hackference before the last Hackference, because I missed the last Hackference.
You did, because you got salty about missing it.
Yeah, I did, because I was flying to Baltimore in order to give a talk on hacking drones the same day that it was happening. And so while everyone else was having a great, lovely time celebrating what the last Hackference, but no, really, definitely, we mean it this time, I was sitting in the middle of Heathrow being very annoyed at the fact that British Airways had decided to very unceremoniously reallocate all seats without telling anybody.
That sounds just as interesting. To be honest, your face after that probably looks like the same as Mike's face when he was running the last Hackference.
Yeah, I heard stories, and none of them were good.
Definitely. I think by the end of it, he just given up and said, "Please put alcohol in my hands."
Well, that just seems like every Hackference, though. Like the one thing that I don't think anyone ever remembers about Hackference was the after parties.
I remember them.
Well, you might be the only one then, because
I bet I didn't have any sleep between the after party and starting the hack.
That would make sense.
Can we stop dragging up my my illegitimate
children? I mean, was it illegitimate, or did you kind of like? I mean, at the end of the day, you did kind of adopt it.
True, like, but it was definitely bastardized.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's very much like a Terrell sort of situation, but
what, I drink and I know things.
I can't. To be fair, that if there's anything that's more equivalent to compare to Hackference in terms of something that everybody really loved and then disappeared and no one remembers anymore, it's got to be Game of Thrones.
Oof.
Well, it's just that you said. I thought I interpreted it as Tyrell, so it came out as both the sort of I drink and know things for Tyrion, and also Blade Runner for the win.
Yes,
which goes. Yeah. In fact, you've got a bit actually, John. You've got a bit of sort of Ridley Scott auteur. I thought, is it Ridley Scott? Who is it that does red and blue? It's Scorsese.
Yeah.
His thing is red and blue. If you go to watch his films, and that's the theme throughout all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I would make a mean Reservoir Dogs, but you know.
That's what? now you're throwing Tarantino into the mix.
Yeah, I know.
What's that got to do? I'm lost. What's
As in, well, it's a similar strain of films, right?
just generic violence?
Yeah, there's you could probably throw see, I was about to say Vince Vaughn, but that is the wrong one.
Definitely the wrong one.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the tech content that you have come to this podcast for.
Yes,
Matthew actually,
Vaughn,
I've just realised we haven't actually introduced John. We've said hi, John, but nobody knows who the bloody hell he is. It's like, what is this
is not
random young voice at the end of their end with the grumpy men?
To be fair, this is not an uncommon thing to happen to me. Like, people will introduce me and then things just kind of happen, words come out, and then I go home and try and figure out what the hell just happened.
Okay, so this is Jonathan Kingsley. Who the hell are you? Explain yourself, young sir.
So, well, okay, right. I'm clearly in some sort of Victorian boarding school. So I am.
You're with two old grumpy men. Yes, it is.
Yes. So I have a background in live stream protocol development, digital archiving, in terms of the technology side. Done a lot of stuff around that corner of things. Led a few development teams. Done bits here and there. And then outside of that, I do a lot of freelance security research, hardware, and manufacturing on the side. And I'm a qualified pyrotechnician and musical theatre performer.
I randomly build hardware on the side as a hobby. It's like, people do that for a living, for God's sakes.
That is a CV that most recruiters would find challenging.
Yes, it's quite difficult to place me.
Well, it's a good thing you're a VP of engineering or something these days.
Not anymore. I have recently stepped back from that in order to provide more time for my tinkering. But yes.
Hang on. You took a demotion so you could build more random crap.
Yeah.
I mean, are we questioning that? I mean, isn't that the dream? Surely.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a case of he's half my age in doing this. At
some point you kind of get like, especially with me, like I don't necessarily enjoy the people managerial side of like team stuff that much.
You're trying to say you don't like people, really? Aren't you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's no way that you get into an industry like this if you couldn't at least tolerate them. Okay,
Twitter.
Not convinced.
Yes. Well, there's a whole topic that I could go on there, but yes, those who can do, those who can't tweet.
Very good. I like that.
Hey, I tweet. Son of a bitch.
Can I say at this point how much joy it brings me to have a guest on the show who's around the developer relations space. I know you're not actually a dev role, right? But in that kind of similar space and has a background in the theatre and acting, because I am effectively an actor pretending to be a programmer. That's basically me.
Yeah, whereas my background with a lot of this is like I've done a lot of backstage theatre stuff. In more recent years, I've basically transitioned that into doing a lot of professional training in terms of like front of house musical theatre side of things. And then outside of that, like really a lot of where I kind of got the initial chops for this was a lot of public speaking stuff. One of my first particular runs at that was in fact I think it was the second or third Hack Fronts. I think was the
give me a year.
2015.
That would be the third.
Yep.
So
Jesus,
that was that long ago.
Yeah, it was.
So I'm led to believe that that one of your speaking slots involved pyrotechnics of.
So this was the first one. And me and Mike both remember this very fondly because one of the first things that I ever asked him was, yes, thank you for the invitation to do this. What is your liability insurance policy?
I would like to point out I'm not a professional event manager. So when I had event insurance, it had always been what happens when I Google the requirements and fill out the tick box? I never checked for explosives.
So
this wasn't the one that was at the Electric Cinema, was it?
No, God.
This
that
is
would
one
be
before
better, 'cause
that.
I was specifically told a list of things that I could not do within the Electric, and that was one of them.
I was about to say, like, let's go into a listed building. Good for pyrotechnics. Off we go.
It would have
what-
looked great.
It would have done, but nothing in there had like fire retardancy.
Well, that and the fact that underground it had nitro film, we would have had an actual small TNT explosive.
I mean, it happens.
Well, if you're starting out and you want to make a name for yourself,
Well,
you want to do it in a boring way in tech. You did it.
The best solution to any sort of hiring problem is to commit arson.
Sounds great.
Well, isn't that just removing the problem via different means?
Well, this is something that I got told ages ago by someone who does like disaster recovery stuff. Is the best way to convince your company to implement a disaster recovery policy is to burn down the building across the street. But that aside,
the dubious
policy of that. So that was at the time the talk I had was around a protocol that I've been working on for communication between pyrotechnic firing systems. And as part of that, one of the things that I'd wanted to do, which didn't end up happening in the end, was a live, more, if anything, because I hadn't finished the hardware at that point, not so much because it wasn't going to work, was actually doing some sort of live demo of the sequencing with some very, very small controlled charges.
You sound like you're still trying to sort of justify it. Very... very small, like not that big. Don't worry. I mean,
to be fair, and I'm not sure whether Mike knows this, but I did in fact manage to get. I did a pyro rig in the IMAX at Millennium Point a couple of years back.
I'm assuming it hacked the Midlands.
Yes, the one before the most recent one. Which effectively proved that, yes, in fact, I am able to negotiate with fire officers to a degree where they will let me do things. So yeah, I'd say my skills in that department have improved immeasurably over time.
I would say at this point, I'm touring with a talk at the moment on debugging in PHP, and I feel that
count as a tour if you don't move your backside.
I am touring virtually. I feel that the content and the subject matter of my talks, in comparison to what John is talking about, is maybe a little bit dry. I think I might need to.
I mean,
I things up a little bit.
Well, no, I think the definition is wet because his is fire. I
mean, I will say that I wouldn't necessarily recommend that anybody try this at home. But I think the approach I've always taken to my talks is to write them more as or almost as like performance comedy pieces, and then extrapolate backwards in order to find an actual tech talk, such that there is just enough material that someone will let me do it without, in fact, having to let's say go to the degree of joining a comedy troupe.
That is the improv. It does resonate. I mean, the first talk that I did, I know that everyone's like, for a lot of developers and a lot of people in tech that sort of start actually talking about tech stacks and doing talks. You start off sort of small and you do a couple of lightning ones and you test the water. I just absolutely failed miserably. I took a topic head on, which was a previous employer many moons ago had spurred on a horrendous bout of bullying. And I just went, I'm going to write an entire talk on tech elitism and gatekeeping as a conference talk, kind of like a keynote. Hang
on, how often do you get trolled with that now, though?
Oh, all the time. I've absolutely made a rod for my own back. And I have to trot out the same line that if I take the piss out of JavaScript, I'm allowed to take the piss out of JavaScript. I'm not allowed to take the piss out of you for liking JavaScript. That's different.
Yes.
Every time I have to do that, I mostly have to justify that to my team on the Fusion meetup, who troll that with me relentlessly once a week at least.
Yes, we do.
I can imagine that must be fun.
But also, I mean, the way that I wrote it was almost, it did, like, for some audiences it worked and for some audiences it didn't. For some audiences, the kind of the whole the whole kind of the pitch of the delivery of it was supposed to be like Dave Gorman. So my dissertation at university from the University of Chester, that's well-known academic establishment. I'm not going to slate it because Chester's an awesome city. Was my dissertation's in stand-up comedy. That's why I wrote it on, and I pitched it I pitched the delivery to be like Dave Gorman and spoke to Dave Gorman about it, and did this.
I love that.
I did this mock angry thing, and when I did it at some user groups, they loved it, and I did it at PHP London, and they were like, "Who is this? Who is this idiot getting really sort of genuinely angry about tabs versus spaces?" And I was like, "No, I'm not really though. I'm joke angry." Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the difficulty, especially when you're trying to bring like elements of that sort of performance into like any sort of space, to be fair, but especially tech spaces where people aren't necessarily expecting it, is figuring out how to
definitely, yeah, the tech crowd, and you have to sort of liven it up. I had to do my talk, the debugging one. I had to do it for a merged PHP group of Austin, Atlanta, and Boston last night, and I was terrified. I was like, "Okay, guys, so here's Jim." The organisers were great. They were really nice, but they were just like really gently spoken. The guy was like, "This is good," and there was an Alan Partridge joke in there that I had to remove at the last minute, and I was just like, "This is going to fall flat." To be fair, they quite liked it. So thank you both, PHP, for having me and putting up with me putting in like British jokes in there.
That's actually a very funny point, because the talk that I specifically had to miss the last Hackfords for on the plane over from having literally did that talk in the UK, immediately got on a flight that evening to then go to the States to do the same one, and on that flight was frantically rewriting a large swathe of it, which involved incredibly like culturally specific humor in order to then land stateside. Which
that sounds about right.
Feels like a much more like, I don't know whether that's a problem that a lot of people have, but that's not the first time I've ever had to deal with that.
I think the worst I've ever done was when I decided to hop 3 countries and do the talk in 4 days. And the problem is, at that point, there's 3 different talks.
Oh no.
Romania,
No.
Romania, Birmingham, and then San Francisco. Ugh.
So your DevRel manager was probably not keeping an eye on your burnout then.
Oh no, that was at the good old point where I was a team of Uno.
Oh, right.
So somebody is stupid. It's like, oh, my calendar's got a space. Did you ever think about travel time? I can travel.
What is travel time?
COVID has changed everything, and the talk for the debugging talk for Jump 24 I did to those user groups at 2:00 in the morning, and it was actually surprisingly okay. My cat
we have a random question. We actually have a random off-topic question.
Oh,
like green or purple grapes? What the hell is a green grape?
Well, it's not a purple grape.
Is this an innuendo? Is this a
no? As in, literally, you get green grapes.
Hang on a minute, Mike. You're questioning the green grapes. Surely,
not
purple is what you should be questioning.
Well,
they're red
what's
grapes.
Green
no?
grape.
Yeah, green grapes.
Yeah.
Green. What do you think white wine is made out of?
Well, they're both made of.
Well, only if you're drinking Lambrini.
Yes.
This blue nun. It tastes awful. Who likes that?
Grapes taste great when not in a fermented format.
So what you're telling me is that you prefer to ferment them internally?
Yes. I could describe that with pretty much everything: cheese, meat, grapes, cider.
Yeah, no. If that persists for more than 24 hours, you usually need to see a doc. But
that is genuinely horrible. I've got my in terms of also sort of classic tech content. I haven't put my hood up, which is useless to anyone listening to this on Spotify. But let's put it up because for everyone else, Mike is wearing his Santa hat. So
does that make you a red panda?
It is a red panda.
I don't know if you did know this, Jim, but I actually now have a red panda tattoo. I may be ever so slightly addicted to red pandas.
When you say addicted, are they still alive?
I'm just going to remove my hood because my tail is up now.
I'm genuinely concerned now. Like, what is in your basement?
Luckily, I don't have a basement within an apartment,
Like I
but
said,
don't check my freezer.
So on today's agenda of tech.
So step one, is this going to be used in evidence?
Probably, but no, I don't have dead red pandas. I have just decided they are the cutest, best thing on the planet. So I decided to have a tattoo of a zombie killing red panda on the back of my leg.
No, you were doing so well, and then you threw in the zombie part.
Which,
it's
to be
on
fair,
the wall behind me.
Oh, okay.
Well, what, your leg?
Well, it's the same design on the wall.
Okay, but yeah, because I was like, hang on a minute. Since when did you have a detachable leg? Like, that's news to me.
Well, I've got to have something special about me.
That I don't even have an answer for that. Like, that's yep. Okay, cool. We're done here.
Let's move on to how about we actually drop in some tech.
Should we put some content in here?
Yes.
I'm going
to start.
I want to get the first bit. I'm looking forward to one of the things on there and seeing what Jon talks about because it's going to be hilarious. I'm just going to do I just want to do my bit for my employer first because they allow me to come on and do this podcast so that I can then promote the stuff that I do. So for anyone that's listening, if anyone wants some info about speaking, about doing virtual events, and virtual events is actually on the agenda of stuff to talk about anyway. We did an article which was a follow-up to the Xdebug talk that I was talking about. We did an article about how to host and how to do your home setup to actually speak online in our sort of COVID horrendous, never-ending pandemic, but apparently it's coming to a close now. So if you go on to the Jump 24 blog, I should really need to just paste this in.
If you get it up and actually put it on the screen, we'll screen share it.
And so yeah, go and check out. It's basically an honest account of here's how we set up and this is what we did. And we got a guest writer. We got Kevin Lewis from You Got This Conf and Women of React, who works at Vonage, did Vonage's Developer Day, to do a bit on his because he's done like 4 this year, I think, of online conferences. So yeah, he's kind of like seriously ahead of the game when it comes to DevRel content online. I've just pasted it into the private chat. Can you just relay it? Because I never logged in.
Oh, you plum. Right, there we go. And right on top of that, I should state, because I actually sense checked this with them, it does include the fact that you don't have to have all this whiz-bangery to do everything online. Yeah. You can do it just with a laptop.
We did write, as part of my writing for that, I did say specifically that it is in there. If you want to run a meetup, there's nothing stopping you from getting a free tier of Zoom and getting your laptop webcam. And some of the events that we've spoken out at Jump 24, some of them have just been Zoom calls, and some of them have been really an advanced platform that's popped up twice for PHP Leeds, and PHP London is the Big Orange Hearts platform, which is like a layer on top of StreamYard, I think, and it's got multiple kind of sources of when you want to hook up YouTube and stuff like that. But there's a big it's a big article that I wrote. Have a look, see what you think. It's on dev.to as well, if you want to check it out there.
It's probably the most you've ever read about, from Jim, considering half of it wasn't written by Jim.
How do you mean half of it? Almost all of it's written by.
That's a low blow.
It's not a low blow when it's true.
So that is for anyone wanting to actually come on and get real tech content before we get on to slating a load of companies.
It does have this amazing bit from Joe. Nash.
I tried to convince Joe to do like a paragraph, and he was like, "No, mate,
no,
I'm far too stacked." But he did let me. I said, "Okay, can I just drop this bit on your Twitter feed because it's really appropriate about please don't start a new Slack whenever you're going to have a conference." But Joe Nash's consulting of how to fire up your how to create new dev communities is kind of vital right now. So I'm not surprised that he's busy. But don't when you create a new conference, don't say we've got a new Slack.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's funny because that's actually a niche that I've been doing a lot of work in as of late, and 90% of that is you looking at me funny.
I've been promoting reskin Slack, or
no. So I'm currently at the moment technically the MD of a virtual events production company now. And what's it, primarily doing a lot of stuff in the hackathon space at the moment. We've run, I think, 26, 27 over the last year. But a lot of this I've found extremely interesting, because these are all questions very, very much that have come up at a lot of the events that we've worked with.
It's kind of Kevin's kind of speciality with Vonage of that's what he's been looking into the most, because and it is in the article that I wrote. It's fascinating how woefully unprepared as a tech industry as a whole that COVID happened. Everyone went, what do we do? And no one responded, and it took months until everyone and not surprisingly, it's not surprising you're saying this, John, but it's always the hacking space, isn't it, where something comes out. It's like the gaming community as well. All of the ability to stream seamlessly, loads of the lessons already came out of the gaming community. Even the actual community bit itself has suddenly propelled Discord as a really decent, viable alternative to Slack. Dare I say, a lot better.
Oh, that's contentious.
I mean,
arguably, I would probably agree with Joe's take on this, which is basically literally, I will pay you money to use basically anything other than Slack. My
problem is Slack and Discord are essentially the same amount of noisy non-community as well. It's just
the difference
there are both sides.
The difference is that Slack has infinitely worse moderation tooling.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that. It doesn't have the ability to stop negative actors.
Yeah, if you are dealing with a large community or an open community where you're actively basically just onboarding people verbatim, it is pretty much impossible to deal with bad actors in that context.
Yeah, that was part of the thing that sort of like the discussion as we were doing the article. Part of the discussion I had with actually really with Joe and Kevin about moderation. And it's interesting you say that, because even this morning I just saw a tweet, and I can't remember who it was by, but a woman had spoken at some conference, and she got the Q&A afterwards, and what entailed afterwards was just sounded horrifying. It was like a load of notes of when someone's like, oh, I've got a load of feedback for you, and it's always it's always a 29-year-old white man. I've got a load of notes for you. Oh, good, this should be good. And then ask for a phone number, and you're like, has this ever worked? But as soon as she put it on, but apparently the moderation team of whatever conference it was, I really should have had the source. Just went goodbye.
Yes,
and it hits home how carefully and how much code of conduct now with online content are so important.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's funny because Joe and Kevin are the two people that I always talk to, probably read a lot of the stuff the most around the kind of events and community side, because pretty much everything that I've done has been exclusively around live stream tech and that corner of things. So it's always interesting to me to see the fact that a lot of this seems to be trending in the same direction, but at the same time there's a lot of interesting nuances, I think, in terms of how certain communities have approached the benefits and downsides that going virtual gives you. I know quite a few communities that have almost scaled down as a result of it, just because they can't deal with the fact that you're effectively opening yourself up to the world, right? You can get an absolute onslaught of new people if you're not careful. Whereas I've seen a few others have actually been doing really well as a result of it, and have been able to kind of keep the pace flowing to a degree where it's still manageable, as opposed to getting overrun.
I think that kind of the kind of moderation and management expectations of trying to do, say, Fusion's partner with Hack the Midlands and CovHack, so really I'm going to drop those two in. But with Hack the Midlands, the amount of work that goes into all of the safeguarding, the fact that it's also available to under 17s, under 18s, and the amount of work that has to go into making sure that there's a safe space in those hackathons, probably puts most commercial tech conferences to shame. But then that having to suddenly go online is a real sort of Pandora's box. I mean, Hack the Midlands 5 was completely online. I didn't really sort of catch up on it, and I couldn't because I became a new dad, so my time became quite limited. But that the shock waves of that must be so difficult.
Yeah, I was a I formerly was a Hack the Midlands organizer all the way up until 4, which was the last in-person one. Up and since the last in-person one.
I didn't speak. That means I didn't speak to you at that one because I was at that one.
Yeah, no, I was running around doing the all of the AV rig for that.
Everyone was running around.
Yeah, but that was the one where we basically built an entire like full-blown lighting rig in the auditorium, which was a lot of fun.
I still think was massively overkill.
It was, but
it's a hackathon.
It was like, for the lulz, we're just gonna go.
Well, the thing is, I think that people heavily overestimate the degree to which you can actually get these things to fit within budgets.
Well, you have the fact that within your budget you can probably have fit 2 or 3 aperture lights and actually had a decent lighting set.
Yeah, but the thing
you
is,
went
it's like
more than that.
Yeah, but it's like if you know the right people, then
I mean, this is effectively.
Hang on.
This is fun versus
lighting.
This is fun versus boring here. Mike's basically saying,
absolutely.
Why don't you make it boring? And John's going, well, we turned it up to 11.
Yeah, it's not making it boring. It's just a case of it's a hackathon. It's meant to be for the lulz.
Well, it's in the same reason that like a whole bunch of the hacks that I've done this year, right? It's like we could have literally just thrown a bunch of workshops on stream, but instead it's like, okay, right, let's do like multicast Among Us and actually pull in every single player feed and be able to switch between them and give people something that's more of like a massive like interactive thing as opposed to just being a hackathon. That's
hackathon thinking.
Yeah, like I think that's the interesting thing with a lot of virtual events now is that you've really got to approach it from the perspective of like there are 1,000 things that people could be doing on the internet. They are not physically at your event, so it's not like they have like some sort of sunk cost in staying there. So there is a massive incentive to do things to a degree where it's going to be so engaging that people are going to stick around.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, like how many meetups now? This is going to come across negative for Jim because of the fact that he's taken his talk on tour and the amount of times it's already appearing on YouTube as part of a dumped feed. I don't even have to bother waiting for Jim to come talk. I can just go, I'll watch it in a couple of weeks, mate. See you later. The incentives for actually engaging in real time is ridiculously low.
Yeah,
it has been a big problem.
It has to be unique, basically. Every single thing that you put on, regardless of what it is, has to have a hook.
Yeah.
Oh, marketing speak. Why you do that?
Just on the safeguarding thing, because we were talking about that just a second.
Yes,
and the reason I can click the comments, I've just realised that Kat is actually listening.
Yes.
So I was like, I should drop in the fact that a lot of that safeguarding is the fact that Kat is awesome at it.
Yes,
so shout out to her.
And I would say arguably is probably one of the only people in the UK with a specialism in dealing with like under 18s at tech events.
There you go. Should we? I want to move on to this point.
Yes,
on the agenda, and I'm gonna let John talk because I mean, basically, I added a note. I added a note. There's a link right here, and it's got mightyapp.com. And
right.
And wait a minute. Mike has just put why, and then I clicked on the link, and then I read it, and I've added my input, which is what the fuck is this?
Right. I haven't looked at this. Okay, you need to screen share, and you're going to walk us through this because I have actively avoided this, so I could give live commentary of what is going on here.
What is this app, please?
Because you two are both now are relatively informed, and I want to be doing the. Okay. I'm leaving now.
Oh, you don't even know what we are about to experience here.
Make Chrome faster.
It's a good
memory.
That is, if you want to make an impact on your website and you've got an app, make Chrome faster. So it's a really good selling point.
I would like to, So the tagline here is amazing. The execution of this, when you start to look into the detail, is fucking insane. So
Hang on. We have all used the terms "fucking insane" in both a positive and negative context.
no, this is in the kind of context where I am genuinely confused as to A, how this raised money, and B, why this exists in a universe if there is in fact a benevolent god. So this is Mighty. Mighty makes Chrome faster. Mighty, for context here, has raised a not insignificant amount of money in the several $1 million range from Y Combinator. The way that Mighty works is that they charge you around $30 to $50 a month in order to take Google Chrome, host it on Linux, and then stream the frames over UDP back to you.
What?
No, this is actually a thing. This is based on a technique that Opera was doing for Opera Mobile back in the day.
Yes, it is.
So it's like the kind of cloud gaming thing where we just
yes, it is, except for your web browser. Because
people are giving these people money.
They have given these people around $2 million in order to basically stream Chrome to your machine over a UDP connection.
Hang on. So what they have done
this is one better than blockchain. This is.
Think about that for a moment. They are streaming full video frames of a web browser over UDP.
Some numbnuts gave them $2 million to make a dumbass version of Citrix.
Yes. Not just that. Apparently, the way that they are implementing drag and drop file uploading is with a custom build of Fuse.
Fuse is still alive.
Fuse. Well, apparently these are the only people fucking using it because it's amazing, and I have no idea how they've raised money for this.
I love the fact that Jez Higgins has just commented, just said the money from Y Combinator pretty much explains everything.
Well, it's like does anybody in the amazing world that we live in consider the prospect that maybe streaming everything you type into a web browser to an untrusted third party might not be the best idea in the world?
I wonder if they've actually checked where the servers are located to actually work out what regional laws this has been applied to.
They're AWS and it's US, which means that Prism is all up in your porn.
Oh, good. Okay,
so Prism knows everything. If they suddenly decide to go to Frankfurt, it's going to get awkward. And maybe we can just go to China.
But it uses 10 times less memory.
I think they have 10 times less memory.
That's understandable given the circumstances. It's just they've just not explained why.
Well, no. But this is the thing that I love, right? They are touting the fact that their thin layer UDP, basically a video player, uses less than 350 megabytes of RAM.
Well, that is that, ladies and gentlemen, is that snake oil covered. That was as entertaining as I thought it would be, if not.
I don't know why this exists. I don't want it to exist, and frankly, I believe that this is pretty much proof that we are living in a universe without benevolent, omnipotent entities.
Hang on. Here's the thing I want to know about.
On that,
John, have you actually had access to it?
No, but I know people who do.
Right. I want to know how they're doing multi-tab support.
Oh, it's a separate video feed for each one.
Hang on. So they haven't got a single stream wrapper which just streams the GUI of Chrome from the remote machine?
Well, no, because the thing is, if you've got two windows, you've got to have two separate video feeds, right? Because otherwise, you can't be rendering the content.
Well, no, because if it is literally just Chromium being executed on an external machine, then obviously they've got browser clicking, etc. They have tracking events.
Yeah.
So they can switch through tabs on the remote machine because that's how remote fucking access works.
Yes, but that would then get rid of their lovely custom UDP protocol.
I've
which I will note apparently that so they put a job advertisement out, right? Which I love because it contains a phrase which I have not heard in years and do not understand why they need this. Reverse engineering max scrolling algorithm. Implementing a custom mouse driver and leveraging Linux UI input kernel modules to simulate smooth scrolling on Linux.
I've had enough of these jokers. Can we start slating another browser which is mentioned in here since as we're on like
no, this is not slating a browser. This is slating
a corporation.
Slating a bunch of corporate overlord wankers.
There's so many of those.
Let's talk about...
Actually, there's two in this. In this sheet, we have two of those.
Let's talk about Mozilla. Mozilla laid off several friends of mine, including a lot of their engineering and a lot of their developer relations. Their developer relations departments and dev education is responsible for the MDN network, which is some of the best documentation we have on the internets. All of that went. Mozilla Corporation announced their annual figures, and their cash in hand and stock went up. Was it $300 million? They have a lot of money, but apparently they can't pay their staff. So they just laid off absolutely everyone at the start of this year, or was it the end of last year? And they're just they're just sitting on piles and piles of money, and their C-level executives are being paid eye-watering amounts of money.
Hang on.
The company that is supposed to be
Scrooge
taking
McDuck
on
levels.
Yes,
it is Scrooge McDuck.
Like they are
the company
rolling.
that's supposed to be shaping the web and is supposed to be the good people and is supposed to be taking on Chrome and Google's complete sort of smash and grab are clearly have just lost their way, haven't they?
Well, they've basically that set of layoffs. The thing that really got me about that, and this is probably more of a personal thing based off of the stuff that I use, but the fact that they basically got rid of pretty much the entire servo team had such wide implications for the Rust core community that they had to issue a public statement about it, because this was effectively the equivalent of gutting half of the base language people.
It was making the core contributors to Rust, the language, not even servo, unemployed.
Yeah,
pretty shocking.
Well, people forget about the fact that servo was basically a very large amount of Rust itself was basically pioneered with servo.
Yeah.
And now
servo was important because it was going to be the next thing to kill V8 to let the world move on.
Yeah, and now it's basically dead.
I think it's still in the active use versions of.
Well, it is. It's still in the active use versions, but there's nobody outside of a section of the open source community. There's no full-time people working on.
So this is going.
New
This is
servo stuff
like
or servo maintenance.
This is like Spider Monkey. It's just getting left in the dust.
Well, this is the thing: is the best shot that anybody ever had at getting rid of V8 may well be dead as a result of this.
Oh, for God's sakes!
The implications of
really
this
pisses me off.
are really quite shocking.
I'm sorry, 300 million. Even if they went, we'll just give away 0.0 something% to have some life support on core open source, the things the foundation are built around. So not Mozilla the corporation, the foundation are built around. Oh, they can suck my hairy balls.
There was somebody did an absolutely amazing post about it. I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. But it was a joke about sitting on money of no, I might need it. No, I might need it. No, I might need it. And whilst everyone's sort of dying, can we have that money, please? No, because we don't need it for another day. That's basically what's happening.
Yep, here we are. As far as I understand it, servo dev is no longer being funded by Mozilla.
There we go.
At all, which means that there is basically no money on that project now.
Jesus, I may have to start.
Let's say hello to your V8 Chrome overlords.
Well, the thing is, it's not even going to be that. They are going to be spending that money on basically paying off literally anyone who decides to own them, because they also fired their entire threat management team.
Did anyone survive? Is it just like
Mozilla's,
6 fat cats sitting in an office in San Francisco?
Mozilla's directors of they're directors of detection and incident response got fired as a result of this.
Oh god.
So if you thought
we now see where the 300 million flipping came from.
Yeah, it's going to be going right back out again as soon as somebody fishes their financial director.
Do you know what this is? This is Donald Trump and COVID testing, isn't it? If you don't test people, no cases.
What problem?
There's no problem because we haven't tested anyone.
No, we don't have malware. We just don't scan for it.
So I feel that was a good sort of. I only brought that up with. I think we're only sort of most of us probably passionately hammering them because I mean of one of the few companies left that that I respected that have been trying to spearhead the direction of the web, and that's gone.
It's like watching a really well-liked relative just destroy someone's car, completely just beat the thing in with a sledgehammer sort of thing, and it's like, why in God's name would you do this when you the thing is if they Servo arguably is something that, as much as it's an open source project, there are companies who are building web browsers who would be more than happy to pay comfortably for enterprise support on that sort of thing if they chose to integrate it.
It's a shame that Brave is built on top of V8. Otherwise,
yep. I think a lot of that was probably because Brave, I know a few people who have used to work there, and there's a lot I'm almost certain that they basically saw that coming on the wind in terms of back when that decision was being made. Even then, there was not as much movement on the Servo side as there probably should have been, and I think a lot of that was because the unseen internal tension there, I imagine, must have been insane.
To be a fly on the wall. One more. Can I do one more thing on the agenda? Because I think this deserves a joke panning. Really.
Let's avoid the other two corporate overlord ones.
No, they're
stand this.
They're too tasty. This one's a bit more tamer. This one's
spicy.
Spicy takes. This one is Clockify.
So what is this?
At Jump 24, right? At Jump 20, it's do you know? So it's for anyone that doesn't know, Clockify is like Toggle, right? So we use at Jump 24. We use Clockify, and we use Clockify for its intended purpose, which is we build clients and we write code for and deliver projects for clients, and therefore we need to look at what's billable and how much how our estimates and whether they're accurate or whether they're not accurate. Clockify, the app, the app has got has got a roadmap. I don't know if they've released this recently, but their roadmap is slightly terrifying. So someone took a screenshot of their recent features that they want to roll out, and they started getting such a backlash. They hastily rewrote them, and one of the rewrites is even worse than the original. But for anyone who wants to on the screenshot, these are the features, right? Force timer, prevent people from manually adding time to their timesheets. Okay, that doesn't sound like a good start. Screenshots, see what your team works on while on the clock. Now they renamed that after there was a backlash and said, have a look at screenshots as a manager in real time. So if you really don't trust your developers, they have to take screenshots every minute and send them. Look, here's one for the don't think that it's frightening. GPS tracking. See locations of users when they clock in and when they clock out. Don't like the cafe that your developers are at? Then you can now look. Activity levels. See if your team member was inactive when their timer was running. So basically, toilet breaks.
Here we go. I'm showing up the modified version, which, as far as I can tell, all of them are there, just renamed slightly.
They've slightly tinkered with some of them, but Toggle got brought into this, and someone said, "Please say you're not doing the same thing." And Toggle just saw a shitstorm when it happened, and we're like, No, we're not
Nope.
doing that. We have no intention to make our app anything like this. This is Clockify have just gone, do you know who our biggest clients are going to be? They're going to be small-sized web agencies and product companies that have sociopathic CEOs that want to spy on their developers 24 hours a day. That's
Here's
what
the
they're
thing.
building.
In those organizations with those weird sociopathic ones, I'm going to put good money on those people have never dev'd in their bloody life. Or if they have, it's been so long ago they are abstracted from the process.
Well, these are
They're not gonna
business
know what's-
managers.
Yeah, they're not going to have a clue what's going on the screen. I see terminal. I don't see typing. It's just scrolling text. Well, that would be looking for the bug somebody 15 freaking years ago left behind.
Well, I know someone who legitimately had to had something like this set up at one point at a former employer and had to explain why a screenshot they had gotten was on Stack Overflow because someone in the HR department thought that was a form of social media.
Oh, here's a nice little spicy take from the crowd. Clockify is great, and I'm assuming, Jim, when using it for its intended purposes, it's great. But you can use it as a test for who's going to be a jackass. I'm thinking now, this is the Will Wheaton test of don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Do you use Clockify as intended?
Well, the interesting thing as well is that Microsoft have actually did something very similar, where they introduced anyone using Office 365 will now have access to something called a productivity score, which the way that this is calculated is worse, because what this does is it basically it scores you based on how often you are using Word, Excel, how many emails you're sending on Outlook per day, and how many hours of your workday you're spending attending video meetings.
Do you know what this is? This is the KPIs that recruiters have with how many emails did you send out.
Yep. And they got blowback on this, and their solution to this problem was to remove the names from the list.
So still have the calculations, still have the features.
Yes. So the calculations are all there, but all of the figures are anonymized.
Because that fixes the whole problem.
Yeah, no, that was I don't understand who in a product engineering team thought that was going to be the solution to that problem.
Considering my last job to use Microsoft stuff, because I was on an Ubuntu build, and to be brutally honest, most Microsoft products didn't work. You know how I got around that? I ran it in a VM. Which meant every time I wasn't using it, I paused the flipping VM. Otherwise, I had no memory to do my day job.
I'm disappointed. I was really hoping that you'd spent a week at your former employer trying to set up Wine.
Well, the thing is, what I don't understand here is the productivity
Would have been
score.
a better use of my time.
Would have been. But productivity score in Word. How the hell do you measure a productivity score in Word? Is that just how long it's in the foreground?
Well, at Jump 24, we measure productivity by how many lines of code in the pull request, because that's how we all do it, right?
Does this mean the solution to that is to run,
listeners?
So
the solution, run Word with one of these the Homer Simpson attempt at clicking the yes button?
I mean, to be fair, I know for a fact that there is at least one FANG company that still uses lines of code as a key KPI.
That's painful.
They've obviously never looked at a microservice framework.
Yep, they're also on our shit list for today, which I also found quite funny.
How big's the shit list? It's getting bigger as far as I can tell.
As in the